Our goal is to set up our palette right here with different values of ink so that we can use them while we're painting and we know about what value is in which divot. So I have my supplies ready. I have my India ink here, which happens to be a refill of Speedball Super Black India ink. I have just a cup of water, nice and clean water, a palette, a white paper towel that's absorbent. I like to keep that in my left hand, and then my paint brushes right here. So in this paintbrush set, I have 6 paint brushes. What I'm probably going to use today is the flathead. It's a small one, and it'll do the job for mixing these up. All right, so I'm going to have my value scale available. You can use scrap watercolor paper of any sort. I'm just going to use this section here to kind of dab and test what value water that I have. Literally what you're going to be doing is establishing your blackest black, and then we're going to add more water to each one of them. I forgot to shake this up just a little bit, swish it around in case any of the heavier particles went to the bottom. So I'm going to just swish that around. I'm going to make one divot here. I'm going to pick this one because it's already kind of dirty anyway. And I'm just going to go and take that purest black. I'm going to squeeze that out of there. With this India ink, a little bit goes a long way. So honestly, like that is going to be plenty of ink. I can even put my cap back on. One can always get more if you need. And my goal is I'm going to have black here and my most watered down value here. So I'm going to go from dark to kind of a mid-tone and then light again. My value scale right here, I'll just push this up a little bit, has 7 boxes. And this divot has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have 3 extra. But I can kind of try to aim for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that this is my lightest value. My mid-tone is right here. So mentally I can kind of prepare it that way. And these will just be extra to help me out. So I'm going to just take some of this black right here. I'm going to add some water to it. And we're making little puddles. Notice how my water immediately is getting kind of dirty. What we see in these isn't necessarily the value that is going to come off on the paper. So I'm saturating my brush, I'm kind of squeezing it out so I don't get any of that pure ink stuck in the bristles. And you're going to want to just kind of get a gist for where you are. You know, there's that value. I probably should have taken some pure black. You know, how does that compare to the pure black right there? I can see that there's a very subtle difference, but we'll go with that. So I'll just put that ink that was in my brush right into that puddle, maybe add a little bit more water. So all I'm doing is kind of squeegeeing out the water here. You can see it fall off my brush. Dip in the water, which is picking up more water, and then squeegeeing out my brush. So I'm transferring that water to the next area, picking it up, putting it down. All right, and my goal is to have a medium gray right here and then the lightest gray here. So I can test this out. What's on my brush? Well, that's a huge jump from there to there. So I can take some of this and plop it in here. So I'm mixing this plus the watered down version here, trying to get something to be slightly darker value, closer to this, but kind of in between. This I'd still call a darker gray, so that's good. I want this to be black, these two to be dark grays, this one here to be a mid gray. Right, I have a big puddle here, so I can take some of this out of that divot and put it into this divot, squeegee out my brush, add some water. When I add water, what you're doing is separating the pigment particles, the India ink black particles, and having more water, which allows us to see through the India ink and have the paper, the whiteness of the paper, bounce off the surface. Okay, the light comes down, goes through that India ink, hits the white paper, comes back, and goes into our eye. So that's how we're reading it, and you're just separating those pigment particles farther away from each other to let more of that light travel through. I'm thinking that's a pretty good mid-tone gray right here. I think I'm going to stick with that. We'll take some of this, move it over, add some water to it. Stir it up a little bit, clean out the brush in there, and then put it near there and say, did I get it substantially lighter? Probably not. I'm going to add more water. Mix it up. I'd say that is a good jump from here to here. So if that's my mid-tone, this is my lighter, and now I'm going to take some of this add some more water to it. Test it out. I'm thinking more water. It's just too similar. We want a substantial jump. And you can see it still definitely has value, but a lot of water to it. All right, that's pretty good. And then if you look, my water is a value. So I'm guessing if I kind of clean out my brush in here, I'm literally going to take this dirty water and I'm going to call that my lightest light. And if it's too light, I can just mix a teeny bit of that in with it. But I'm thinking that's going to be a nice value. So if I have two darks, a midtone, two lights, and yeah, this would be my white. So I think I actually made it extra because to get white, we would just use the paper. So I probably could just ignore that. But this does have a value to it. Once it dries, you'll be able to see that sure enough, there is some value there. So I could go with this, but that would just make a longer value scale. So now I am ready to work on my value scale. It's all set up. I have my black here, the darkest gray, darker gray, medium gray, lighter gray, lightest gray, and then this would be clear water, or I'm just going to leave it blank because that's how we keep white, is leaving the paper blank. So I'm ready to go.